A man bought a secondhand car. He was overjoyed as the car owner had sold it for just over $800. He decided to drive it home as soon as he purchased it. But little did he know that it would be the most difficult and horrifying drive of his life. As soon as he started the car, he heard a childlike voice saying, "Please help me." He stopped and turned around. To his surprise, he did not see anyone. He thought they were just hallucinations. He ignored it and started to drive. After about 15 minutes or so, he felt as if someone was sitting in the back seat. He looked through the rearview mirror, but saw nothing. A little further into his drive, he heard the same voice again. "Please help me! I'm in pain!" This time he got super scared. Wiping the beads of sweat off his forehead, he brought the car to a halt. He stepped out of the car and realized that he was all alone on the road. He opened the back seat door of the car to check properly, but he saw no one. Then his eyes fell on the punctured tires. "How is this possible?" he thought to himself. "I was just driving comfortably." He quickly decided to change the tires and get off from there. Just as he was done changing the tires, he stood up and saw a woman in white clothes. She was standing right in front of his car. He freaked out. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" "Don't you see the board?" the woman asked. "What board?" She pointed her finger towards a board that read, "Do not use this road at night." "Oh, I hadn't seen that. Anyway, I am in a hurry and I need to get home soon." Upon hearing this, the woman started laughing in a weird manner and out of nowhere started to cry. "Please help me. You are a gentleman. Please help," she begged. "Don't cry. Tell me how I can help you." "My child is missing. Can you help me find him? He was just around here some time back," she requested. Suddenly, he heard a childlike voice saying, "Mom, I am in the car. Please get me out." His voice pissed off the woman and she started yelling at the man. "Oh, so you're the one who kidnapped my child." He stood there in absolute shock to find the child in the back seat of his car. The woman started searching for her child inside the car without even opening the door or even the window. The man was shocked and asked, "Who are you? What do you want?" "I want my child. He's in your car," she replied. "1 year ago, a man drove his car on this lane so fast, and he failed to realize that he had hit a 6-year-old child on the way. That was my child. I'm sorry for your loss, but I am not the one who did this. You should put up a complaint against the person who did this to your son." She laughed and said, "It doesn't matter at all." "Why? If you can't do this, then how will I help you?" "Do not bother. I've already got what I want," she said and disappeared. He stood in shock for a few minutes, seeing the woman disappearing in front of him. When he came to his senses, he decided to get back in his car and drive home. When he looked through the glass of the car window, he was not able to see himself. He opened his car and saw himself lying on the driver's seat. He started shouting and yelling, but no one answered him. After half an hour, the police came to investigate. The man started shouting again, "Please help me!" That's when the 6-year-old child appeared, held his hand, and said, "No one will help you because I've been asking for help for a year now."
Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for more videos.
It was a cold and dark, mysterious night. The moon was struggling to escape from the ruthless grip of the strange dark clouds. Dogs were howling somewhere, and the wind kissed the bayonne tree leaves. Rachel was repeatedly switching between the news and sports channel on TV. Suddenly, her eyes caught something interesting.
Breaking news. A psychotic killer from Newland Jail has escaped and is on a rampage. The assailant has killed 2 women who were alone in their homes. We are now getting reports that one of them was from Revolt Street.
Rachel was terrified. Revolt Street is where she lived. And she was all the more scared out of her wits when she realized she was all alone in the house. And to top that, owls were hooting from nearby trees and lights were flickering on the darkened street. Suddenly, Rachel heard a cold knock at the door. She felt her blood freeze in her veins. She slowly walked towards the door. Her legs were trembling. She opened the door. A pale man in his 40s was outside her door. His eyes were blood red. Rachel's heart skipped a beat when she noticed those eyes. The man asked her whether this was Sarah's house. Rachel nodded. The man's face lit up. "Hello, madam. I am Webster, Sarah's pal," he said in a harsh, husky voice. "My car broke down. Can I stay in your house for a while till the mechanic arrives?" Rachel was already terrified seeing those eyes and objected bluntly, but the man was repeatedly pestering her to let him in. Finally, he asked if he could speak to Sarah. Rachel shook her head and said, "Sarah is very ill. She is sleeping upstairs. I can't wake her up. Please leave." But the man was so stubborn that Rachel thought of a plan. She told the man to wait at the door for a while and ran upstairs. She took a deep breath and then adjusted her voice and mimicked like she was very ill. "Webster, I'm not feeling well. I need to rest. We will meet tomorrow." Yelling loudly so that Webster could hear it. After some time, she trotted downstairs and opened the door cautiously. She found those cold, blood-red eyes staring at her. "Webster, I am sorry," Rachel said in a feeble voice, avoiding those eerie eyes, and closed the door at once. Rachel tried to calm herself. She tried to watch something interesting on TV. She was startled when she heard a knock again. Thinking it was Webster, she didn't respond. She kept quiet, but the knock at the door was becoming louder and persistent. Finally, Rachel gathered the courage to answer the door. The moment she opened the door, a cold, icy hand gripped her. She was frozen with fear. It was an old man with a crooked smile on his face and a tattered bag over his shoulder. Webster was still standing impatiently beside him. He hadn't left yet. "Oh, my child, can you get me a glass of water?" whispered the old man. Rachel hesitated. The old man murmured again, "Come on, child, I need to quench my thirst." Rachel closed the door and scampered to the kitchen to get water. The news was still flashing on the television. She slowly let her hand out of the door with a glass of water. The icy fingers took it. Suddenly, the power went off. Only the howling of dogs was to be heard. Then, there was dead silence. And after that, a mysterious and evil psychotic laughter was heard. The old man and Webster found that Rachel was gone with the door ajar when the power resumed. Webster called out for Rachel. She wasn't there. Both the men stepped inside the house calling for Rachel. The television was still flashing with the breaking news. They went towards the kitchen in search of her. At that moment, the power went off again. A cold hand crept over Webster's neck. He was petrified and started to yell. They couldn't see anything in the dark, not even each other. Webster could feel the hand crushing his windpipe as he was breathing hard, fighting for his life. Fortunately, the power resumed. To their surprise, nobody was there. The old man looked terrified and had no clue what was going on. They trotted upstairs in fear, thinking that Sarah could help them. The staircase creaked under their feet. The upstairs was dark. They couldn't find the switch to turn on the lights. Somehow they found Sarah's bedroom. Webster knocked on the door, but there was no response. Their hearts were thumping hard when they slowly opened the door. The room was dimly lit by the faint moonlight. "Sarah? Sarah?" called out Webster, hoping that she would answer. Suddenly, something cold touched Webster's feet. He jumped back like a cat on fire. The old man took a flashlight from his bag. It was blood, pure blood. Sarah was lying dead in the pool of blood oozing from her slit-open throat. Suddenly, a psychotic laughter was heard from behind. It was a gloomy figure in the dark with a blood-dripping knife in its hands. The eerie figure approached them. The old man shone the flashlight towards the figure's face. The faces of the two men had the expression of cold death. The figure was none other than Rachel. After a long silence, two loud screams were heard. Cecilia and Linda were two typical American teenage girls. After school, they spent all of their time together, watching scary movies, having sleepovers, shopping for new clothes, etc. They liked partying, keeping up with their friends, having fun, and enjoying life. They had no way of knowing the horrible fate that life had in store for them. It was Christmas season, and Cecilia and Linda were planning to celebrate it together. They decided to have a girls' night out on Christmas Eve. They planned to sneak out to a nightclub for a Christmas party as soon as their parents went to sleep. On the night of Christmas, Cecilia kissed her parents goodnight and went upstairs to bed. When she thought that everyone had gone to sleep, she took out her cell phone, called her friend Linda, and told her to meet her at the store down the street. Linda agreed and hung up. Cecilia quietly opened her bedroom window, trying not to wake anyone. She stepped out onto the windowsill and climbed down the drain pipe. As soon as she walked down the deserted street, she got a strange feeling that she was being watched. The hair on the back of her neck pricked up. She glanced behind her, but she was all alone. When she came to the corner store, there was nobody around, so she took out her cell phone and called Linda. "Okay, I'm at the store. Hurry up, or I am going home." "What's wrong?" Linda asked. "I don't know. This just doesn't feel like other nights. Something isn't feeling right. I've got a bad vibe." "Stop it, you're just paranoid," laughed Linda. "I will be there in 2 minutes." Cecilia hung up the phone, but she couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was watching her. 5 minutes later, Linda turned up and the two girls walked together to the nightclub. The girls were too young to get into the club, but the bouncers never asked them for ID. They strolled inside, and pretty soon, they were dancing to the music and flirting with guys on the dance floor. Around 3 a.m., Cecilia was chatting with a really cute guy who must have been at least 10 years older than her. Suddenly, she felt her phone vibrating in her pocket. It was a text message from her ex-boyfriend Joey. She hadn't heard from him since they had broken up a month ago. The text read, "Come outside. I've got a surprise for you." Curious, she looked around and saw Linda busy, talking to some other man. So, without saying goodbye, Cecilia walked out the door of the nightclub. She had just taken a few steps when she received another message. It read, "Meet you around the corner, over by the dumpster." The street was dimly lit and deserted. Cecilia had a bad feeling in the pit of her stomach. Something didn't feel right, but she told herself she was just being overcautious. Inside the nightclub, Linda was looking for her friend. After waiting for close to 15 minutes, she began to grow impatient. She scanned the dance floor, but there was no sign of Cecilia. She even checked the toilets, but they were empty. At 3:27 a.m., a relieved Linda got a text from Cecilia. It read, "Meet me outside now. Hurry." When Linda got outside, she received another text. "I'm around the corner, by the dumpster. Come watch me sparkle." Linda followed the direction, crossing the dark, lonely street. When she rounded the corner, she was confronted by a horrific sight. Her heart almost froze in her chest. Cecilia was hanging upside down from a streetlight in the parking lot behind the dumpster. Sparkling Christmas tree lights were wrapped around her ankles. There was a large pool of blood below her. She had deep wounds along her stomach and neck. Linda fell to the ground on her knees and began screaming hysterically. Some people who were standing at the door of the nightclub heard her cries and came rushing over. When they turned the corner and saw Cecilia's blood-dripping corpse hanging in front of them, they were horrified. The cops were called and they questioned Linda for hours. Still in a state of shock, she could barely talk. Sobbing uncontrollably, she told them about how she and Cecilia had snuck out for the night and had gone to the nightclub together. She tried to remember all the guys they talked and flirted with on the dance floor at the party. They asked her if she knew anyone who would want to harm Cecilia, but she couldn't think of anyone. As much as she wanted to catch Cecilia's killer, she was no help to the investigation. During the interrogation, one of the cops produced a plastic bag and took out a blood-stained envelope. "We found this lodged in your friend's throat. It's addressed to you." Linda was scalded across the front. With trembling hands, she took out the piece of paper inside and read it. The letter read, "Maybe if you stayed in bed like you were supposed to, things like this wouldn't happen. Don't go sneaking around at night. Bad things can happen." The cops had to grab her before she fainted. An ambulance took Linda to the hospital and she was treated for shock. When Linda returned home the next day, she was still shaken. Her parents told her that Cecilia's ex-boyfriend, Joey, had been arrested for the murder. He was later released after a lie detector test. He claimed that his phone had been stolen the day of the murder. The police didn't rule him out as a suspect in the case, but they had enough evidence to charge him. As fate would have it, Cecilia's murder had remained unsolved. Nobody was ever brought to trial for the crime, and as time went on, people began to forget about it. 2 years had passed, and Linda had almost managed to forget about the terrible night when her best friend was savagely murdered. One night, she called her boyfriend and asked him to meet her at the park. It was about 2 a.m. She began to walk to the park, but felt a strange presence. Just like the one Cecilia had told her about the night she was murdered. She was almost at the park when the feeling came across her, so she let it go. Her phone beeped. It was a text message from her boyfriend. "Almost there, baby. Love you lots." It made her feel much better. Her last task was to pass by the store. The park was on the other side. She began to walk, but heard something behind her. Immediately, she began to run. Her boyfriend got to the park and waited for about 15 minutes. At 2:35 a.m., he got a text message from Linda. It read, "Keep walking forward and you'll see me." He did as the text suggested and walked forward there. Hanging upside down was the blood-drenched body of Linda. Christmas tree lights were wrapped around her ankles. He called the cops and was interrogated all night. The next day when Linda's boyfriend got home, there was a letter waiting for him at the doorstep. It was stained with small drops of blood. The note read, "Don't go sneaking around at night. Bad things can happen." I wish I could tell you that the murders of Linda and Cecilia were solved, but that's just not the case. Today, the police say that the investigation is still going on, but they have no new leads. The murders are seldom spoken about nowadays. They were high-profile cases at the time. Due to the strange lack of evidence, people soon forgot about them. Everyone who was involved went on with their lives. You may be wondering, how do I know so much about these cases? Well, I would rather not go into it, considering it is still an ongoing investigation. If you must know, I was the cop who was assigned to the case. I was the cop who handed Linda the blood-stained letter. You may also be wondering why the murders were never solved. Well, like I always say, don't go sneaking around at night. Bad things can happen.
Another lazy Monday morning. How I hate Mondays! Exclaimed Dora as she woke from her beauty sleep, which was disturbed by the pesky alarm clock that lay beside her. For about 5 minutes, she stared at the window that provided a beautiful landscape. "How I wish I was inanimate just like the tree," said Dora as she slowly and steadily moved out of her bed. "I feel so tired. Should I skip work today?" Saying so, she checked the calendar which marked the date of the important meeting with the international clients. "Ah, good lord, the meeting is today. I must reach there early." Saying so, she opened her wardrobe and repeated the phrase which all girls do. "I have nothing to wear." After 5 minutes of scanning the clothes, she finally chose her white shirt and black trousers. She freshened up, quickly rolled her hair into a bun, wore white studs, packed all her stuff, and left the house. Dora's office was a 10-minute walk from her house. Just to describe her location, Dora lived in New York in a rental apartment. Her parents, Frank and Lucy Roberts, who stayed in Canada, would visit her often, and Dora would complain about her stressful life to them. They would advise her to remain calm and keep going. Hard workers always succeed. Mr. Roberts would say, "Your hard work today will ensure a beautiful future tomorrow." Coming to the present, Dora was sleepily walking on the street when she realized that the entire street was empty. Not a single person adorned the streets. However, she didn't think much about it and reached the office only to find it shut. She was left baffled. Why in the world is the office shut on a working day? Even if the sudden decision was taken, then why didn't my boss inform me? thought Dora. Nevertheless, having no choice in hand, she decided to head back home. As she reached home, a note rested on the living room sofa. "I shall now enjoy your life," it said. Dora was confused as to what this meant. She threw the note in the trash and looked out of the window. She saw Joanna steadily approaching her apartment. Why would Joanna wish for a rendezvous with me? After all, she despises me so much. The doorbell rang. Dora didn't wish to open the door to her but still did, as she wanted answers to the weird things happening around. As soon as Dora opened the door, Joanna flung her arms around Dora and embraced her dearly. "How are you, Dora? I missed you so much. I just couldn't wait to see you, so I decided to make an impromptu visit. I hope you don't mind." Dora couldn't believe her eyes. Her mouth swung open in shock as she scrutinized Joanna. She was tongue-tied and her eyes seemed to have frozen on Joanna. "What's the matter, Dora? Are you okay?" inquired Joanna. Dora still couldn't answer as this wasn't possible. How could a girl who always played evil tricks on her suddenly transform into a will-wisher? Joanna gave her a nudge, which brought Dora to her senses. "Wouldn't you ask me to come in?" asked Joanna with a sweet smile. "Oh yes, certainly, but I hope you aren't here for executing your evil tricks," mocked Dora. "What? Why would I do that? After all, I'm your best friend. I'm here because I missed you," said Joanna. "This is so bizarre and uncanny," thought Dora. "By the way, why are the streets so isolated today? You sound as if you're new to this worldwide routine. Don't you know that Sunday is always a holiday? According to the calendar, today has to be Monday. How is it a Sunday today?" thought the confused Dora. Maybe it's actually a Sunday and I'm mistaken. What thoughts are you occupied with?" Nothing. Anyway, would you like to have something? Snacks or anything to drink?" questioned Dora, who held hospitality to the highest regard. "Yes, I'd love to." Dora brought some snacks, and the two enjoyed relishing them together. They chatted for quite a long time, and then Joanna took her leave. Dora felt quite special that day, and assumed that maybe Joanna wished to give up on her enmity and start anew. The next morning, she received a text from an unknown number, reminding her of the important meeting with international clients. Since it flashed an unknown number on her phone, she texted back, "Sorry, may I know who this is?" The other side responded, "Are you dreaming, Dora? I am your boss. Hope you remember that you're working." Dora was flabbergasted. How is this possible? How didn't her boss number exist in her contact list? Anyway, considering the meeting, she didn't ponder much upon it and left. At the office, the meeting with clients was a huge success. She decided to approach her best friend Christine to share her happiness as she usually did. However, when she walked casually towards her, Christine ignored her. Dora wasn't expecting this. However, she caught up with her and inquired, "What's the problem, Christine? Why are you avoiding me? You're speaking to me as if I'm your dear friend. Have you forgotten we're enemies?" Dora could now figure things out. Everything was happening in the topsy-turvy way. It was as if Joanna impersonated Christine, whereas Christine transformed to Joanna. Dora also observed that her strict boss, who regularly discouraged her, had suddenly become amenable and understanding. Things had taken a reverse turn. Dora started to enjoy this life, which welcomed compassionate people, unlike her regular villainous life. Once at home, she was surprised by the presence of her parents, eagerly waiting for her. Dora rushed to hug her mother. However, Mr. Roberts didn't hug her back. Instead, she asked Dora to back off and stop behaving like a child. Dora couldn't believe this at all. "Mother would never speak to me like this," recollected Dora. Also, her dad wore a frowning expression and said, "We're here to inform you that if your performance in the office continues to remain poor, then do not rely on us on your expenses. You're no more a child." Dora was even more puzzled. "My performance in the office is way too good. I received multiple laurels to my credit. Why is my dad saying this?" thought Dora. Without waiting for a response, Dora's parents stormed out of the house without even giving her a farewell kiss. Her parents too had changed. Then she could put the pieces together. Maybe she was in a different world. Each of the people existing here had a doppelganger in another world. It could also be the reason that the phone numbers of her close ones and colleagues did not exist. Dora had heard about the parallel universe and assumed that probably she was part of it now. Since everything is happening the reverse way, this has to be the parallel universe. Then, she frantically searched for that note in the trash. When she got hold of it, she could understand the words in it carefully. The author of this note is most probably my doppelganger, and currently she is in my world. What do I do now? How do I make things alright? I cannot have my parents and best friend treat me like this. Wake up, Dora darling, you're getting late for work. Dora then slowly opened her eyes to find her mom by her bedside. Dora heaved a sigh of relief after acknowledging the fact that the entire episode was planned by her neurons. Oh, what an unpleasant dream to have seen, sighed Dora. Move out of your dreams, baby, and freshen up. I'll keep your breakfast ready, beamed Mrs. Roberts. Dora nodded in approval and shot out of the bed. As she was slipping on her flip-flops, she noticed a piece of paper near the lamp. She quickly unfolded it. It said, "You're lucky to have returned." This note blossomed the dire confusion in Dora's head. Was my trip to the parallel universe a dream or reality? To this day, the mystery remains unsolved. The mere thought of it haunts Dora, and she's regularly made it a routine to thank God for her safety.
Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for more videos.